But of course, social media in the last 5 years alone has completely skilled people up, if I can use those words, but, in the language of diagnosis. There was a generation ago, they may have heard of diagnoses such as narcissistic personality disorder. But nowadays, anyone that they don't get on with is a narcissist. Because, or anyone that disagrees with them, this is the one I hate. Anyone who disagrees with you or remembers and recalls events differently to you is gaslighting you, apparently. And that's not the clinical definition of gaslighting. And the word triggering and toxic and, it's all these words that are out there on, TikTok that then has filtered through to the everyday language in the street between people. And they use those words to avoid hard situations. Suddenly, I can't do that because I'm triggered and I need to put boundaries in place. And they think that that is actually protecting their mental health and creating, a happier existence or resiliency, when in fact it's doing the complete opposite. You're actually just hiding away from tough situations that are good for you. And so we need to override somehow and get rid of these terms that I can't see him because he's a narcissist and he triggers me, so I'm going to put a boundary in place so that his toxicity is not in my life. I mean, it's like, how many times have I seen that, heard that? Rather than stop outwardly blaming other people for your, struggles there and face them head on, and don't use this therapy speak of boundaries and, protection of oneself as a good thing. And I know that's very confronting for people to hear sometimes. My therapist has told me to put in boundaries. And of course, it's situation dependent. But when adults are using these words so flippantly and regularly, children are listening. And they're seeing adults avoid tough situations rather than modeling to our children that I really don't want to do this thing today at work. It's going to be really, really hard, but I can get through it. And at the end of the day, giving myself a pat on the back because, that was really awful, but I did it and I survived. And if I need to do it again, I know I can.
Yeah, so I guess as we transition to where do we go from here, my thinking is, with the amount of people that are out there that are talking about how challenging and how they're leaning on their mental health maybe a little bit too much right now, and we're seeing this rise in therapy speak and, as you mentioned, over pathologizing anxiety, I just think of the opportunity that's there. If I was a young person right now looking around and thinking everyone is talking about how their anxiety is crippling them, how they don't have any confidence, how they're struggling, and yeah, I'm feeling that, I would just look around and go, what an opportunity. Everyone around me is getting weaker and everyone around me is lowering the bar. So if I want to succeed, which should be initially your own port of call, because you want to get yourself into a good place so that if you do have aspirations to help other people, then you can do it from a good place. You're like, wow, I can go well here. I can get ahead. So the opportunity is massive to just build that. And I don't say that other people are getting weaker as if you want them to be weak. But again, it should be that you could be someone who could be aspirational and could guide people down the road, because it was something that I did as a young person. I wanted to be a role model. So I aimed for characteristics that I believed would help me become a role model. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I now have young people come to me asking for help because they sort of see those traits that they want to be. And I'm like, I shouldn't be on my own in doing this. There should be thousands of people wanting to do this. There should be thousands of people wanting to go out there and have those attributes. And for a young person right now, wow, what a time to have that opportunity.
I love that. I love that perspective of opportunity. And I think to a degree, I think this is quite a Western world problem. Almost like this self-flagellation. I've written about topics like patriotism, um, that we need to be proud of who we are and where we come from, and see the world for what it is at the moment. Being born at a time where there's never been more opportunity, and there's no matter where you come from in terms of living in the countries that we do, the world is there at your doorstep to make what you want of it. But it's not going to happen with the mindset we know of ruminating on how crippling my worry is about something. So, yeah, I love that perspective on opportunity. I might steal that and use that with young people myself. I'd absolutely agree that people need role models. They need to see that people have gone before them, done what they want to achieve, or survived worse, and thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I always ask young people, what if you could do anything in the world at all? If you got paid to do anything, the dream job, what would it be? And it's amazing how small people play when I say, no, dream job, like of anything in the world. I had a young teenage girl tell me the other day that I'd really like to be a pastry chef. It's a very, very obscure thing, but she loved cooking, and she's like, but I'd just like to own a little pastry shop in the city somewhere, or work in a little pastry shop. And I looked at her, my face screwed up, and she said, "Oh, you think that's stupid, don't you?" I said, "I don't think it's stupid, but I asked for the absolute ultimate dream. Why not own the shop? Why not be a pastry chef in Paris? Why not be like, let's think big?" And she said, "Well, no, like I could never do that." And I said, "But hundreds or thousands of people have already done it. So you're not even starting off from a position of, the Richard Bransons or the Elon Musks of the world, where they say, I'm going to do something that no one else has. You're literally giving me a dream where thousands of people have done it before you. So if they have already done it before you, you've got, an able body like them. Why is this any different?" And I started bringing her around to see that. But of course, you have to have people that have gone before you. And so role models are really, really important. And I think, at my age, I'm middle-aged, I suppose you could say. um, I look to kind of my grandparents' generation as a huge source of role modeling. And I think we've been in such an era the last 10 years, the last couple of decades, really last 50 years of prosperity on a world front, of course, in Western countries of peace. And of course that, good times, they say, breeds complacency. And I think I'm that last generation of having that direct connection to my grandparents' generation, who presented food coupons, at the street to get their rations of flour during the war, and were shipped off out of London, billeted out away from their family. And I think, not to make this political and go open up Pandora's box about the COVID pandemic, but when I look back at it, I am starting to talk to young people and saying, yeah, that was really hard, but I was stuck in my home with Netflix and a gin and tonic. Like it was okay. And we can go into whether that should have happened or not. That's not the point. But previous generations have had their struggles, and to see that we can get through this and we can thrive after hardship, it's not invalidating. And that's what people say. They say, well, you've invalidated my feelings. No, your feelings are still your feelings. But it's about, as you said, looking towards now. You have a choice. It's a very clear choice. And there is opportunity there to direct your life in one way or the other. And you are the architect of that now. That is not something that we can keep blaming on a past event.
If you enjoyed that clip with Claire, then YouTube has put together the best video that it thinks you will like from our podcast. All you got to do is click here.